everybody, and welcome to Legal Internet Solutions Incorporated live stream Three Things, which is part of our weekly live stream series. I'm your host today, Kristyn Brophy, Director of Client Strategy at LISI, and I am joined by Director of Client Success and Marketing, Taryn, Elliott. How are you today, Taryn?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Living the dream. It's been a very long week, and that's okay.
Well, those holiday weekends will do that to you when all of a sudden you're back in the office and you have less days and you're probably busier and, refilling your soul in a spending time with people you love kind of way, but not so much in a catching up on sleep kind of way. So
yeah, that just described my long 4th of July weekend exactly. Catching up on seeing friends and family and such, but then not catching up on sleep and all that.
Exactly as it should be. There have definitely been some sleepy people in my household after a weekend of catching up with everybody, which is great. I feel like it's kind of the one time during the summer when people are more likely home or making more of an effort to see everybody. So I always like that. I feel like the summer is so crazy, it's hard to see everybody as you're going every which way. But 4th of July, especially when it's over a weekend like this one was, makes it a little bit easier when you have multiple days to get in all of your visits.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's part of that. You need to refill your own cup before you can fill others. So it's, fill your own cup, take care of yourself. That way you can do better service for your clients.
Exactly. I agree. I think everybody's like hit the ground running beginning of July, like ready to knock this out. I know for me, July's kind of the end of our summer because my kids get back to school in August and sports start and everything. So definitely feeling ready to tackle this month and have a good summer session of work here before everybody kind of starts settling back into the fall and normal 9 to 5 and less vacations.
Q3. How did we get here already?
I know. Time flies when you're having fun, Kristyn.
Oh, seriously. Well, speaking of fun, thank you for joining me today for our live stream for 3 things in digital marketing for law firms. And the 3 things that we're talking about today are, maybe not something that you hear every day, specifically for B2B or B2C law firms. But they're very, very important, particularly the first subject that you're going to talk about. Today, we'll just kind of cover Google Analytics 4 and implementing that and why that's important to get that installed. We'll cover some influencer marketing tactics that you can include in your strategy. And then we'll go over testimonials as well as case studies as part of your marketing strategy.
Yes, digital marketing for law firms is so broad, and I know that we really tried to pick topics we're not talking about on a regular basis. So if you wanted content marketing or video, we have a whole resource of things to go look at. But hopefully these 3 topics are something that will really add some value and maybe be something you haven't thought of before. So we will go ahead and dive right into Google Analytics 4, which many people have probably heard of, especially the last few weeks. There's been a lot of information about it, but most law firms, most organizations use Google Analytics to track their analytics, although there are other analytics tracking software that you can use. But we've been using Universal Analytics, which is what was the standard for so long, and Google is now launching Google Analytics 4, which will allow you to report across platforms. So if you have a website and an app, you now have all of that data, all that information in one place. And really the information, since we're tracking more, allows us to have more data to, see more insights and really make better decisions about the marketing we want to pursue based on what activity we're seeing currently in our websites and apps and related things. So the thing that everyone needs to know and why it's kind of a big deal right now is that Google will sunset Universal Analytics in 1 year. On July 1st, 2023, Universal Analytics will sunset. Google Analytics 4 will be what everyone is using. So that's 1 year from now. We're starting to really make a push to get everyone signed up for Google Analytics 4 because the information doesn't track the same way between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4. And if you sign up and implement Google Analytics now, you'll have more data once they sunset Universal Analytics. So that's really important. That's actually not what we're talking about. We're not talking about how to implement it. If you want to implement Google Analytics on your own website, we actually have a blog post about that with pictures that tells you exactly how to do that. So check out our website, legalisi.com, for more information on that. But I'm going to dive into some of the things that you might want to know about Google Analytics 4 and why it is valuable or beneficial for your law firm to use this. Like I said, it reports across platforms. So if you have an app and a website, you can actually get all of that data in one place instead of trying to piece it together, using disparate systems. So maybe somebody starts looking at your law firm on a website, but then maybe if there's an app, they end up, doing further research or reaching out on the app. I know not all websites have apps, but for those that do, this is something that can be really, really useful. A lot of people, we've talked for years about compliance with privacy laws, such as GDPR. That's a really big one. But a lot of that is location-based, usually by country. Some of it's more city or state related, but a lot of it's by country. And Google Analytics 4 will allow you to set privacy restrictions based on countries at the country level. So if you are doing a lot of work in Europe and you want to collect information from your European users differently than your American users, you can do that using Google Analytics 4. So that will be really, really helpful. One of the differences that people should know about with Google Analytics 4 is that they won't be primarily recording information based on sessions. Currently, Universal Analytics does sessions, which is multiple interactions at one time that a user will take on your website. It could be a page view, it could be an e-commerce transaction, whatever it is, that's recorded as one session. And it can have multiple, what they call hits during that session. Moving forward, there will still be sessions. They will still record that data, but each interaction will be stored as what they're calling its own event. So every page view, every button click will be one event. And that will allow you to get a fuller picture of how people are moving through your apps and your websites, both from what the typical journey is for your client or prospect through your website, but also what people are focusing on, maybe what people aren't focusing on, and that data will be really meaningful as you decide what to prioritize in your marketing plans moving forward. And also with that, they're going to start doing some nice things that I know some CRMs and other applications use, tagging things like first visit, last visit, that kind of thing. So that'll be one more way that you can track information. And because you have all of that information, and it's very comprehensive, but also down to kind of minute levels, you can segment and make target audiences in new ways that you haven't been able to previously. But there's two things that I really want to dive into. One is how they track information. So right now they track you using just a device ID, which is basically figuring out what your browser or your computer, that string of numbers that everybody always sees. That's your device ID, and they try to follow you through using your device ID. But moving forward, they're going to use what's called Google Signals. And one of the ways that this will mostly impact you is that Google will start tracking your information based on users who are logged into their Google account and who have opted into that, to having that information tracked in that way. So there's a lot more data that you can get when the first thing that Google is looking at is the user ID. They will also still do the device ID, and they will do those together to give you even more data points. So the second thing I want to talk about is how that will impact you. So first, you need to enable Google Signals, but it's really simple. You just turn it on, so you can go into your Google account and turn that on, so that way you can get all of that data. And then once you have it, you'll have that data in all of your reports. So in the past, because it was so broad and you were doing sessions and you just had this device ID and it wasn't your website and your app information all together, you didn't know how much overlap there was between one person who might have started looking on their website and then maybe looked at the app and then came back to the website. So this will allow you, because the information is the same across all reports, to deduplicate some of your users and get a really good idea of the actual number of unique users that you had. It will also tell a more unified story of how people use your website, interact with your website, and get to those important touch points, those calls to action, reaching out to your law firm to say, hey, I have a case, tell me more. Is this something that you would be willing to take on? And by having all of that data and all of those different pieces that you can slice and dice and you really get the idea by users, you can make much better marketing decisions and decide really where you need to prioritize things, what you're doing well, what could use improvement, and focus for a little bit. So very broadly, that's Google Analytics 4. We will be doing more information about that in the coming months, as when this information changes over. It's not apples to apples. It's not a one-to-one. So you'll need to figure out, what Google Analytics 4 is tracking and, how you have increased or decreased users or sessions or whatever moving forward. So Google Analytics 4, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. And hopefully everybody will at least get that implemented and start using it. So that way, a year from now, you will be completely ready for the changeover.
Thank you so much, Taryn. That's a lot of information, and I'm sure it's really valuable for our clients too. And, it's really important to track those KPIs or key performance indicators. And I feel like, that Google Analytics 4 is going to cross-track all platforms. I think that's just going to make KPIs so much easier to measure, and it's going to be huge for gathering that data.
Yes.
Which brings me to our next point, influencer marketing tactics, yet another platform that you can be using as part of your digital marketing strategy.
Yes, this is something we see in a lot of other industries and a lot of other places, but not something that law firms are really taking advantage of. So there's a lot of opportunity if you can, start early and really carve out your area.
Exactly. And so influencer marketing is basically taking the idea of celebrity marketing and a celebrity's presence online and placing it into a modern day content-driven marketing campaign. I think it's really important that law firms start to look to their influencers to help inform their content strategy and help inform their marketing plans, because your lawyers, and I'm sorry for everybody that believes this is a really hot take, your lawyers are not your influencers. I will repeat that. The lawyers at your law firm are not your influencers. They are definitely, FaceTime attorneys. So they're, getting in front of the clients and getting in front of people. But your influencers are your clients, and more importantly, your prospects, those people who can help drive your brand and drive your business on a digital platform. So basically an influencer, which are your clients and your prospects, not your attorneys. I can't say that enough. An influencer is someone who has the power to affect purchasing decisions of others because of their authority, knowledge, position, expertise with their audience in their niche. And not necessarily their relation to the firm or to, your audience and such. And they have built a following of a distinct niche, where they're constantly actively engaging. So there are some influencers out there, and this might be a tough example, but there are some, marijuana farms out in California, and they are influencers for, if you follow them on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or Clubhouse, the Pot Brothers at Law are two cannabis law attorneys out in California, and they turn to the actual growers and those who are working in the cannabis space to be their influencers. And they do that by collaborating with them on their content. They invite them into their social media channels. Maybe they do a social media takeover for a day, and they have one of their clients take over their TikTok or their Instagram or their Twitter, and have that influencer, that potential client or that client of theirs, doing all of their content for them. And then that will influence that the followers of the influencer collaborating on that content to then come back to the firm, and it helps position the firm as the preeminent thought leaders in cannabis law. And I know that's kind of a controversial subject, but it is one of the prime examples of the legal industry using influencer tactics in their marketing. Other ways that you can use influencer tactics is by collaborating on Instagram. It is very easy to have a single Instagram post go across multiple profiles, as long as they are business or creator profiles. You cannot do this with a basic Instagram profile, but your business profiles can actually invite someone else on Instagram to be a collaborator. And then that post and that content will show up not only in your firm's feed, but also in that influencer's feed and that collaborator's feed. For example, if you are sponsoring an event, or if you are a big supporter of, a local bar association, invite that bar association to collaborate with your content on your firm's Instagram. And then that way you're getting on both sets of audiences, and it influences the buying decision of prospects for maybe your firm's client base. Another way to do it, invite a collaborator on a podcast. Invite your competitors to join you on a podcast, or invite your competitors to write an article with you. The whole point of being an influencer is about building that community and engaging with like-minded individuals, such as collaborators and competitors, and that will get your content, amplified beyond belief. One of the data statistics I was looking up for influencer marketing says that $13.8 billion is the revenue for influencer marketing in the United States in 2021. And that's according to the marketinghub.com. So, and then $5.78 for every dollar spent on influencer marketing can be tracked directly to ROI. And these are for B2B businesses, these stats, not for law firms specifically, but for a lot of B2B and more, professional services industries. So if you're not using influencer marketing, start thinking about it, ask us about it. We're happy to take the plunge and answer those questions for you. Which brings us to our next point. Another tactic as part of influencer marketing is actually reaching out to clients and asking for testimonials and doing case studies. That is actually a tactic of influencer marketing. So Taryn, want to talk a little bit about case studies as part of a marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to start with before we really dive into this topic is you need to know what your advertising rules are around case studies and testimonials. I know Kristyn just went through a bunch of stuff about influencer tactics, and that's really based on creating valuable content that not only you want to get out to your audience, but that would be valuable enough for others to want to share too, or to be a part of. So that's great. And then taking that a step further, when people are going to vet your law firm, to vet your attorneys, they're looking for, what I call like proof of concept. They're looking for other people who have said, this is great. But before you can do any of that, you have to understand what your state's rules are regarding advertising, specifically related to testimonies and case studies, because not all states are okay with that. So check with your ethics lawyer, read the decisions, find out how you can make this work for your law firm.
Yeah. And, you also, when doing your case studies, you can get into the real nitty gritty details of a case. So you want to make sure that you are protecting the client's identity if they have asked to be anonymous as part of your case study. And it's important to know, code of ethics for lawyers. Actually, one of our guests on News, Views, and To-Dos said it best. Don't post or write anything you wouldn't want the Board of Bar Overseers to see or read or hear about. Yes. So definitely pay attention to, your ethics in your state. And when you're writing your case study with your client, make sure that you are, not giving away legal advice in writing those case studies. And you're just kind of providing a broad overview of those things.
Yeah, but so that broad overview is really important, because when people, are making a very big decision like hiring an attorney, which, people never casually go do it. It's not generally a happy occasion to have to hire an attorney, although sometimes it is. And, that's really great too. But people are definitely looking for the examples of how an attorney or a law firm was able to help someone like them, someone with an issue like them, someone where they had a problem and it was solved, in a really satisfactory way, in a way that really helped the, client at the time. And so people are really looking to validate that they're making the right choice. And that's really where case studies and testimonials come in validating those thoughts and those decisions.
Absolutely. And you can take all of that content from those case studies and testimonials and repurpose it in your content strategy. So it doesn't just, live on your website and you hope people find it. Cross post it on all of your channels, post it on social media, repurpose it maybe into an infographic. What was the result? Was there a big verdict? Specifically, if you're a personal injury firm doing a case study for a client, let people know what the result was. Was it a multi-million-dollar verdict or settlement? Did you help a client become whole by, helping ensure their safety and kind of that safety net for the rest of their life financially, and that way they can support themselves? And while you're doing it, maybe ask for that testimonial. Hashtag Testimonial Tuesday is a huge social media hashtag with a lot of following. And going back to the influencer tactics, it influences that buying power of those potential clients or your current client base, maybe wanting to come back for more, who are also some of your greatest referral sources to, come back to you or refer you to other friends or family or people that might want to use your firm for their services.
Yeah. And, case studies and testimonials aren't something people do every day, but we find, for ourselves or working with clients, it's usually a pretty easy process to integrate into what you're already doing. So as a firm, just look at your process for handling a matter from start to finish. And usually there's a trigger point in there where you can add in a step that says, is this matter, is this case a good example of what we can do for a client? Yes or no. And if it's no, that's fine. And not everything will be. Sometimes it's just a run-of-the-mill matter, like it ended in the best interest of the client, but it didn't have that wow factor. But if it's yes, then you just kind of start down another little path. Like maybe there's a questionnaire that goes to the attorney or to a paralegal who worked heavily on the matter to get more background information. At that point, you can decide if you really want to move forward with the case study and testimonial, because then you need to bring the client into it, as you said, get their permission, get their perspective, their side of the story, I guess, because it'll be both. It'll be both a telling of what the attorney and the law firm did and, what the client did, what the client's needs were. And that's really the first thing. What did the client come to you with? What did the attorney do? How did that positively impact the client on the back end? So yeah, once you had the permission, once you had the interview, all that's left is writing the case study. And if you're not even doing a full case study, maybe it's just a quote, maybe it's just a testimonial that's a lot shorter, needs less information. Write it, review it by all parties, make sure everyone signs off. I would get that in writing in case there's any problems down the road. But yeah, then you promote it. Like you said, there's so many different ways you can use it. You can use it on your website, you can use it in social media. For law firms that are doing advertising, it's a great thing to include in an advertisement. Like we always say, create something once, but use it as many times as you can moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us to the end of our live stream and the topics that we had to cover today. I can't stress enough how important all of these tactics that we discussed today are to a comprehensive multi-channel marketing strategy. I mean, Google Analytics 4 is huge, and implementing it is going to be really important. And the earlier you can implement it, the better your data. And, those influencer tactics, feel free to reach out. I am happy to help and answer questions about influencer tactics for law firms, because it's still kind of uncharted territory.
Yeah, I love taking something like that and saying, well, if other people in other industries are doing this, how can I apply it to my industry and to what I'm doing? And it might not be exactly the same, but there are a lot of ways that if you just kind of take a step back and think it through, which is something, we do and we'd be happy to do with clients, you can really come up with some really unique, really different ways to market your law firm.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today, Taryn. This has been a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Please stay cool. It's really hot
Yes.
where I am in Boston. Not sure about you in Indiana.
Oh, I think it's actually hotter here in Indiana than it is in Boston.
Brutal.
It is brutal.
Well, anyway, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time on our next LISI live stream.
Bye, everybody.